Welcome to Logistics Business Conversations, the podcast exploring the ideas and insights shaping today's logistics industry. Featuring leading voices from across the sector, we examine key trends, emerging challenges, and the innovations driving the future of supply chains.
Hello and welcome once again to Logistics Business Conversations, the podcast from Logistics Business that looks at all matters logistics, whether that's cost effectiveness, efficiency, speed, accuracy, just getting better at logistics is what we're about here. So welcome. And of course, logistics is about a lot more than warehouses and storage. It's also about getting the goods out on the road. And so to that end, we're going to talk delivery networks in today's episode, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by Gary Rosier-Taylor from Descartes. Gary, welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to see you. Nice to see you again, and nice to be here as well. So I appreciate the invite.
Great stuff, Gary. Now, can you tell us, first of all, a bit about you and what you do for Descartes, and then about the company?
Yeah. Okay. So fundamentally, my role and responsibility at Descartes is for all things routing, mobile, telematics, and customer engagement. So I look after all of our products, all of our new and existing customers right across the EMEA region. I've been in logistics logistics software now for around about 11 years. And my kind of sort of, let's say, sort of 30,000 foot view is, and how I explain to a lot of my friends, family who are not as enamored with logistics software is, our technology and solutions make the logistics network, the roads, a safer and greener space for everyone out there.
Yeah, pithy description. Okay, now what I love about today's theme, which is from good enough to future ready and rethinking delivery networks. I love this idea, good enough is not enough. That's what you'll say. So you say, it doesn't matter how good you are, it's still not enough with your delivery system. So what does that mean, Gary? Tell us about that.
Yeah, great question, and a good one to stump me right at the start, right? Good enough is not good enough means that if you kind of sort of think back to the way that businesses have created their delivery networks or their logistics platforms and logistics solutions, generally speaking, they have just been bolted on and bolted on and bolted on. So what I mean by that is, let's say an organization or a business have started out with one depot and 10 vans or 10 vehicles. Over a period of time, they've grown naturally. And so what they've done is they've just added more vehicles to that particular network. And then what they've done is maybe gone and bought another organization or been through an mergers and acquisitions. They've gone and acquired a different type of vehicle. But they've just kind of bolted things on. And therefore, it's not, every time that they go through this process of growth or new customers or new product solution suite, they're not redefining their network. They're trying to utilize what they already have and say, good is good enough, which means, can I get the product or service to a consumer or customer? And if the answer is yes, good is good enough. So that's kind of where we would approach it and challenge organizations to think just that little bit differently and kind of try and redefine things as they're going through key strategic changes within their business.
So they're getting deliveries out the door. The logistics operations look okay. Customers are happy. You're managing, but are you doing it as well as you could be? That's what we're saying, right?
Correct.
Okay. So okay is not okay. How do you at Descartes approach that?
So it's another good question. And obviously there's far smarter people within our business than I am. But when we really look at an organization that's making some fundamental wholesale changes or totally reviewing their entire network, we would look from a technology standpoint at multitude of different things. So where are their depots located? What are the vehicles they're running today? Are there alternatives? The scenarios of what if and or kind of scenarios that we would generally ask somebody is, could you do it with this type of vehicle? No, because we can't fit Arctic lorries down, customer side roads as an example. People and many organizations are looking at the switches, electric vehicles and electrification, which provides two major challenges. We work with a partner called Dynamon who are super strong at this in terms of their capabilities. Number one is, can my vehicles actually run a day-to-day perspective without having to go through a charging process during the day? So A, how many miles are you doing? B, what does that actually look like out on the road? C, is that viable as an option? Then number two is, could they actually charge that network as well? So if I've got 30 vehicles coming back into a depot all at the same time of an evening, and I've only got 10 hours to get them back out on the road the next morning, what does my charging network actually need to look like? So there are so many hidden complexities in what if and how is my network created, from depot locations to vehicle types, vehicle models, vehicle fueling methodologies, and what's actually going to be best for that scenario. To add another complexity to it, we would also look at changes they're going to make to their customer promises. Things like, what happens if I change my delivery time window from 8 till 6 to 7 a.m. till 7 p.m.? Does that give me additional flexibility? Does that give me additional capacity? The answer is always yes. But can I use that capacity? Or does it just create dead periods within a given day? A really, really good example of this is one of our customers were looking at extending their hours, going from 7 until 7, from 8 till 6. And the hyper-specific example here is they missed, because of where their depot location was, they missed all of the peak traffic in the morning. They lost all of that peak traffic in the afternoon at 5:30 when they were actually trying to get back to the depot location around the M4, M25, M3 junction. Therefore, knowing that they had that plan, they were able to say, well, that's actually not a good idea, because any benefit we gain of additional capacity, we lose in cost.
What other areas of the delivery process, you've talked about vehicles, fuel systems, are there other areas that you can also address for companies?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of stuff that people can work through, and obviously the process goes far beyond logistics, packing a van, getting a van on the road and moving it out of the door to a customer's location. Obviously, other processes such as like staging processes, picking, packing, et cetera. As a business, we can absolutely help with those areas. So from a logistics network standpoint, it's not my area of expertise, but we can absolutely support that in terms of the bandwidth or the throughput from a branch and from a depot perspective.
And you've talked about your activities would include the applications that you could offer. You've talked a bit about route planning and optimization in terms of times. What about the other areas that we now associate with optimized delivery, execution, stuff for the driver, dynamic scheduling, that kind of stuff? What sort of solutions can you offer there?
Again, great question, and kind of natural progression on from, let's plan the network. So making our wholesale changes for the future. What if or how do I take my business today and expand it or grow it? Then there's the other piece, which is I've got today's problem. And today's problem is not always tomorrow's problem. Great example, if an organization runs 6 days a week, I almost guarantee you the number of vehicles they have available on a Saturday versus on a Friday is wildly different. They will have more drivers wanting to work on during the week than the weekend. Therefore, different problem, right? But also the other problem becomes the other way is customers maybe want to get deliveries on Saturday. So you have greater capacity need on a Saturday, but less resources to work with. So how do you manage that, right? So from a route optimization, delivery execution standpoint, technology-wise, we have everything that covers it. It is super, super important to get creating an excellent plan, which in reality has probably 4 types of customer that it needs to consider at any given point in time. There's a customer that wants it fast. I need it as soon as possible. You've got the customer that wants it cheaply. So give it to me the most cost-effective way. Give it to me conveniently. I'm here recording this podcast today. If somebody tried to deliver a sofa to me, it'd be a really bad example because I wouldn't be able to receive anything. And then you've got the other element of give it to me economically. We have absolutely seen a shift in consumer mindsets. And so the complexity of a planning tool needs to consider all of those 4 things. So you are creating a profitable network, but taking into consideration your customers' wants and the customer's mindset. So first one is, let's call it the route optimization solutions, then taking that into reality. So we can create a fantastic plan, but unless you have a tool that's going to enable your drivers to follow that plan in the most sufficient way, granted things happen out in the field and we get that and we understand that, but being able to control what deviation happens and occurs on a day-to-day basis, understand what's early, what's late, and so forth, is a real key win for logistics businesses. So they can actually manage everybody in the same way. If you and I were both drivers out in the field for a furniture delivery company, I can absolutely guarantee you would be able to deliver certain products and solutions quicker than I would. Slightly stronger, maybe slightly more technical minded.
Knows both of those. But
but but that's not how I'm wired, right? And so I would be a poor individual from a driving perspective there. So plan based upon a set of highly specialized constraints, considerations, also adding to that being the 4 types of customer. Execute as close as you can alongside that. So giving the tools to be able to collect that data and manage your team respectively. But last of all is communicate anything that happens within a given day successfully. As a customer, and we're all customers, right?
Yeah.
And the moment we get ourselves into that mindset, it's super powerful, especially when you're creating delivery networks. As a customer, I want to be informed. I want things at my fingertip. I do not want to be chasing anybody. And I give the example of the minute my wife chases me for a task to be done around the house, I know I'm in trouble. And the same applies for business.
Deserve it.
Yeah, I probably do. I'm definitely slower than I should be. But the scenario, the situation is exactly the same when you're a customer of a brand. The minute you have to chase, your mindset is tarnished of that brand and that service. And so if a delivery time window is between 8 and 6, as an example, and it's 5:45, what's my first worry and it hasn't been delivered? The first worry is always going to be, is it going to arrive today? What happens if I need it? First thing I'm going to do is pick up the phone. That's unnecessary if I'd been communicated automatically throughout the course of a given day using the tooling that's available to the team and the drivers moving forward. So I think it's really, really powerful that having a platform or a solution that can consider so many different facets, consider the 4 different customers and the customer types, where there's a different level of profitability or revenue that's coming through each individual product, that can understand convenience for a customer, which is then executed to give yourself a plan versus actual that is at least remotely close to each other, which means then you can plan and execute day in, day out, knowing that today's problem is not tomorrow's problem. That for me is critical to consider.
Sure. And from what you're describing, would I be right in saying that a new customer should consider the Descartes portfolio of applications and products as a whole? It's not a case I could come in and cherry pick and say, oh, well, I just want your execution app or something. What you're saying is they'll only really work if you've got all of them. Is that right?
To take a slightly different spin on it, organizations do come to us and look for individual modules and products and solutions to fix a problem and a challenge or a point within your business. It doesn't mean to say that we can't do those things, but generally speaking, we would normally see organizations taking a multitude of those different products for 2 reasons. One, it's generally easier for us to integrate existing products and solutions and modules within our own organization. But second of all is, if you create a plan, being able to execute it with that data feeding synonymously through those two solutions and products is really valuable for the business to be able to see what's going on, when it's going on, and how tight am I achieving my plan, and then communicating effectively off the back of it. So generally speaking, we can offer different individual modules, but we would most often see them bundling to get the most amount of benefit from a technology stack.
And what about size of business that might work with your products? Because, of course, many logistics operators across Europe, they're still small operating, 2 or 3 trucks, family owned. Is there a benefit to a company that small using your products?
Absolutely, yes. And arguably more benefit in percentage terms and percentage differences. Generally speaking, most businesses that we work with have got more than 10 vehicles. Obviously, we scale up for businesses like John Lewis and so forth.
What would be your biggest and your smallest today, roughly?
I mean, from a technology standpoint, probably biggest fleet across the globe is around about 10,000 vehicles, and our smallest is 10.
Wow.
So it's a huge breadth difference. But that doesn't mean to say the benefit cannot be felt in either of those 2 organizations. They're just set up and structured differently.
Yeah.
From multi-depot, multi-centers, but you don't have 10,000 vehicles coming out of one site, right? So that's a different way of looking at it and a different way of constructing your network strategically.
So, for example, in that case, is it fair to say that the system will help allocate which depot a truck should be using? It might be, well, when you're going out of depot A, you should be going out of depot C if you're looking to hit these times in these.
It's a great question. There's a specific industry that we see this being more prevalent for, and it's mainly the way that the businesses have been structured. If we take the builders merchants or the manufacturers of this world, right? Number one is there's a ton of M&A happening in that space, and a lot of conglomerates coming together and building these networks. But they're generally father-son, mother-daughter brands or businesses that have been created. They've acquired to gain access to a particular geographical demographic or geographical market. And what you see is that each one of those depots has an individual vehicle or 1 or 2 vehicles that apply to them because they need to get that product to their customer in some way, shape, or form. What you often have is a relationship. I'll take my where I live. down the south, you've got Basingstoke, Winchester, and Southampton, and you'll take businesses that have been bought, or merged and acquired into a larger organisation, and they've got a depot in each of those locations. All of them have got vehicles, but Bob from Southampton has always bought from Gary in Winchester, at which point he will continue to go to Winchester to buy his products and services. As of today, most businesses will, that Winchester branch, because they've sold it, they'll deliver it. Logistically, it makes much more sense for the Southampton branch to deliver that because they're closer. It means they can sweep into their network much, much easier. So those opportunities are so much greater in that particular market, and it happens every single day. The amount of times I will see a large wholesaler or a builder's merchant driving past my house, and I see on the back of it where it's come from, and it's normally Reading. Why are you delivering down here? We have a branch that's 10 minutes away. Doesn't make no sense.
Yeah. So what you're saying is in that case, it could be that they don't have the sort of optimizing software that they could do to.
Yeah. And often it's because of the way that the businesses are structured in terms of profits at individual profit centers or revenue centers. So that's absolutely critical. Organizations, if they can get themselves away from revenue centers to profit centers, makes a ton more sense.
Right. Good thoughts. Okay. I can't go through a podcast without asking you about AI. What's the role of AI machine learning in your technologies?
I mean, route optimization solutions have always had a huge element of machine learning anyway, because we're taking a lot of historical data, be it traffic, be it road networks, et cetera, and we're consuming that information to give out a plan. Okay, so there's a ton of machine learning in there. The most real benefit that we would typically see right now, aside from what people call, let's call it AI-centric platforms, is all around service time and stop time. A good plan is only as good as the execution. And if you're planning to have stop times that average 18 minutes, that's fantastic. But if you get to the afternoon and those stop times are all 2 minutes and 3 minutes because your product or the produce is relatively small and light and it's very easy to deliver those, your plan versus execution is wildly different. So having a product or solution that can learn service times based upon the product type, the vehicle type, the driver, the time of day, the customer location, the geolocation, that's going to give you a much better plan versus actual, because it's going to create real service times for you, which means your plan is going to be more accurate. Now, it could go either way. It can go either I can deliver more, or actually I learn my service times are far too quick today, and therefore I'm trying to squeeze too much on. I'm actually failing deliveries at the end of the day, and therefore I'm setting expectations with customers I'm going to get them today, but that not actually happening. And so I'm failing my service level or my customer promise. And that's obviously a massive issue. So AI and machine learning, a huge element of machine learning in most technology and products anyway. But the artificial intelligence piece is being able to predict specific service times and give you the capability to update them based upon those multitude of facets that we've mentioned today.
We talked about planning. What about the here and now? And every logistics business has to deal with today's difficulty, as you've said yourself today. Fuel price volatility caused by the war in the Middle East as we sit here today. Yep. Can you sit here and promise your customers or potential customers that your products can genuinely help save fuel bills at a time when fuel bill is probably their biggest concern?
I'm not going to say and promise anything. I think we've been in scenarios and situations where we've been going through the pre-sales opportunity, and we've shown that actually the mileage is going to be greater. But it depends on what somebody's goal is, right? We often find we're the second or third solution into somebody's business. And what's happening today is they're not able to achieve the routes that are planned. Now, the question is why? What's happening speed profile-wise? What's happening to their network? Is their service time or stop time, relative, or is it accurate enough to create a good plan? And the answer is often no. So I'm not going to sit and promise anyone we're going to reduce your mileage. What I am going to say is there's two things to consider. Number one is today's problem is not tomorrow's problem. If I've got a ton of resource today, I can utilize my 20, 30 trucks, whatever I've got out on the road. Do you want to use them? Is the first question. Or do you need to hire in external agency staff to put those vehicles out on the road? What's actually financially the best scenario? Sometimes there is a benefit to having more mileage, but lower resource. There is sometimes a benefit to having less mileage, but more resource. So there's a cost optimization element sat behind it. And with the increasing cost of fuel, that's actually getting much tighter, as in the time versus the variable cost of mileage. What I can say is, as long as we work with an organization to structure the optimization profile that's right for their business, if we work with an organization from the outset, we can generally structure the optimization solution to work on different optimization goals. Now, that goal could be one day of, use the lowest amount of resources, because I'm really tight on resource and I only want to go and find 1 or 2 agency drivers. You could put them into a position in a world where the goal is to reduce mileage, or the other one is we could reduce cost. Now, those 2 things or those 3 things are not always synonymous and exactly the same thing. So again, we would work with an organization to go through what's best for them.
Right. I'm a business that's thinking about digitizing, taking on your solutions as a way of optimizing my operation. What are the questions I should ask myself? The challenges that will prevent success? How can I make success more likely?
Yeah, fantastic question. I wish I had this with every customer that we speak to, right? What are the challenges that could come up? First of all, are you technologically ready? I think one of the things we see most often is the business is technology ready, but the people aren't.
I do hear that a lot.
There's maybe
across the piece. I don't mean from specifically your sector.
Yeah, and are we technically ready and capable? But also, are people actually in the field ready and wanting to take that on? Now, if the answer is no, the question should then be, do you have the right people on board? And is that a change management piece that you need to go through? Number 2 is, what is my goal? Many organizations that we talk to will come to us and say, like, what could we achieve? It's great. You should always have an idea of what your goals and objectives are before you start engaging in a product or solution. We are the experts in our products, but we're not the experts in your business. So the collaboration of those 2 things need to be from the start, like understanding what you want to achieve and then tying that in with, okay, well, how would we achieve that? I think often we get involved in processes with organizations that want to do route optimization. They just don't know what their goals and objectives are, because they're just lost in this arena of, I've just bolted my business together over years and years and years, and now I'm kind of struggling. I'm like, I don't actually know what I want to achieve and how I want to do it. So those are probably the 2 biggest challenges I would say that the business will go through. Lastly, my only advice with something is, from a technology and from a product standpoint, our goal is to deliver a successful project. It's not to get the most amount of money out of a solution. Like, our prices are relatively fixed.
Do you sell as a service or as products, by the way?
We sell as a service.
Okay, sorry, carry on.
And no problems. So yeah, be open and honest with us. Like, the more information that somebody can share about their logistics setup today generally helps us, because we see thousands and thousands of customers. And if you're a food distributor, a furniture retailer, or you're a builder's merchant, as 3 fantastic examples of where our solution plays very, very well, we see these businesses day in, day out. So we know what the variable costs, we know what the goal is in terms of how many shipments or how many orders can we fit on and squeeze on a van, a truck, whatever it may be. Those metrics are super important and super valuable to any business, because you want to deliver the most amount of product with the least amount of resource, covering the least amount of miles, to enable you to have the most efficient and cost-effective logistics network.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Great place to bring us almost to a finish, because we have to have our traditional last question, which is about crystal ball. The logistics business crystal ball, what's happening next in your sector?
What's next in logistics? We're asking the experts. In our crystal ball segment, industry leaders share their predictions for the future.
A very good question. As a sector, we've been on this transition to electric vehicles for a long period of time. The traditional combustion engine, is that going? Are there other fueling methodologies, and looking at hydrogen, et cetera, as opportunities? I think that, for me, is probably where I see businesses trying to look at this, the cost effectiveness of that structure. We see so much data out in the market. And again, a statistic is incredible until you really dig deeper and you understand that there are so many different ways to spin a statistic. I read something the other day of organizations which, with electric vehicles, electric lorries and HGVs, that a 44-tonner has a payload and a combustion engine of roughly 28 tons. But with an electric 44-tonner, only has a payload of 24,000 tons. And therefore, the capacity is automatically degraded. I understand the ethos and the mindset of that. However, number 1, my first question is, how many times is your 28-ton combustion engine waiting out or voluming out? Now, different people will have different answers to that. But if you're voluming out and not weighting out, well, the 24-ton capacity limit in an electric vehicle doesn't change anything for you because you're voluming out, not weighting out. And so there are so many different ways as an organization to look at these things. And I would urge those businesses and those organizations to speak to people who know their technology inside out, back to front, and just look at it from a different angle. So yeah, that's, again, a statistic that I heard around electric vehicles, which was maybe right for one business, but it was absolutely wrong for a different business. And so just those small little details can really change somebody's mindset and where they're going from a strategic standpoint. So crystal ball, I think we're going to see the continuation of the decline of a combustion vehicle, but I don't know where we're going to end up from an EV hydrogen alternative fueling methodology, which I think will be really fascinating for A, making the world a greener place, but B, a safer place as well. But then, last of all is, how does that change the entire logistics network that we operate today?
Great place to finish. Delivery networks. Gary, thank you so much for joining us at Logistics Business, and see you again next time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good stuff.